Hello, good evening and welcome. You've just entered the arena. I'm Michael Coren and a lot to discuss on the show tonight. Now, there's been a great deal of discussion in Ontario recently about a radical and intrusive sex education curriculum being proposed by the province's wonderful Liberal government. We've discussed it on the show and I'm proud of that. Look, if we at Sun News don't inform you of what is really going on out there, nobody else will. And those of you watching outside of Ontario may have thought that it was just soft old Toronto, Ottawa and the rest who were in trouble with this rubbish. Well, not so, my friends, not so. What is sometimes forgotten in all of this is how so many of these redundant and damaging proposals are initiated by teachers' unions. Now, not, it has to be stressed, ordinary teachers, but the extremists who have the time and inclination to work within their unions. If you ask almost any teacher on the front line, working hard to educate our children and do the right thing, the last issue they'll want to discuss is sexuality. And it's largely irrelevant and a massive digression from the genuine challenges of literacy, decency, and just preparing kids for university and the workforce. Okay, so I mentioned that the rest of the country shouldn't feel smug. Right, here's proof. Consider, for example, what the BC Teachers Federation have placed on their website. Great reading inside a long, tedious section entitled The Gender Spectrum, What Every Educator Needs to Know. Do they? The usual nonsense about the fluidity of sexual identity is spewed out, all the dreadfully written and nauseatingly one-sided stuff about sex. Then, under a subchapter called Myths and Facts, interesting, eh? We have this, and I quote, "Hormone blockers are a safe way to buy time as the transgender teen decides whether to go on cross hormones. This treatment prevents the often traumatic development of secondary sex characteristics that do not match the person's gender identity. It also prevents the need for painful and expensive surgeries to undo these changes later in life. This treatment is widely endorsed by family doctors, psychologists, and other specialists involved in transgender health programs." This is bad, bad stuff. First, there is a great deal of medical research proving that these profoundly serious drugs have appalling effects on the brain and can do untold damage. Second, such treatment is not widely endorsed at all, and there are very few doctors who would advise or prescribe such medication. Third, the whole argument rests on the assumption that young people may be trapped in the wrong body rather than being confused, abused, unhappy kids. In fact, and please listen to this, children and teenagers who might believe that they are of a different gender may well be in acute need of care and the last people to be handed over to some ghastly social and medical experiment. A lot of teens find sexual development and even straightforward puberty a tough process. We know this. Embarrassment, clumsiness are common and in no way unnatural. That their vulnerability can be exploited is terrifying. This is not about an effeminate boy being bullied, a girl who does boyish things feeling excluded, or a gay student being allowed to be happy and respected at school. It's an agenda with consequences that are so far-reaching that no parent or doctor should be allowed to influence a child, and certainly not a radicalized teacher. There was a time when teachers taught, and unions made sure they were fairly paid. And when mums and dads assumed that their tax dollars went to schools so that their children could learn history instead of histrionics and science instead of sexual perversion. It all seems such a long time ago now, but don't any of you dare criticize public education or unions. That's what makes Canada great.